Here we are again. When I'm recording this, it's been about a week since the United States has attacked uh, Iran, and this is the second attack under the administration, the Trump administration, that has also decapitated the leadership of Venezuela. More people are paying attention to this strike, along with the Israelites, the nation of Israel, assisting in it. Apocalypticism, end times, etc., etc. Um, this is this is high times for church. It's they're making hay while the sun is shining, and they're taking advantage of a lot of what's going on. The truth of the matter is what does this all mean in reference to the New Testament? Uh, Absolutely nothing. That's what I have to say. I've studied the New Testament in depth in its original language with the help of the top classicists probably on this planet as a group, as far as language and what the meaning is of these words. And then I go through, especially the big stuff, like Second Peter 3, which we'll talk about, with all kinds of different artificial intelligence with the same parameters. What is the language saying? After the language, what do these words mean? What's the range of meaning? What's the context? Where did it take place? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It builds upon itself. And it says none of this stuff. And it's so amazing. And I mean, I think I know why. Do you know why? Do you know why all these things happen? Because somebody wants them to happen. The purpose is that they do it for is, why are these things happening? I mean, there's wars. There's war in the Ukraine. There's things happening, but after a while, we stop paying attention to them. All of a sudden, the Ukraine is not so prophetic, I guess is the proper term anymore, as far as apocalypticism is concerned. Uh, but the things that people come up with that they believe in right now, because everyone's under the impression that they're supposed to be watching and keeping an eye open for these things that are going to be happening. But what are they keeping? What are you looking for? What is the sign that you're looking for? Do you even know what it is? No, seriously, I mean, people are constantly and continuously looking out for what? Uh, I know a popular one is like a trumpet. If they hear a trumpet, um, or a trump, as they call it exactly. Some people say that has to do with Donald Trump. There's so many wild theories out there, and I see past years, not really on purpose, but I've seen it where they try to somehow take what's happening in Iran and turning it into something that can be used today as one of those symbols, but they never really elaborate exactly what it is. They don't look at it and say, okay, this is Matthew 2:13. This is supposed to happen, and that just happened. And that puts us here, and then that needs to happen, and then Jesus is going to come. Something like that. None of that. It's like a bunch of talk, but it's nothing. Oh, it's going to happen soon. Oh, it's going to happen. Oh, we're getting closer to it. Well, of course we're getting closer to it. Every day that goes by, we're getting closer to it. What do you mean? And it's just really bizarre how things have changed. I've noticed in about the past 200 years, with basically John Nelson Darby was kind of the pivot to this new way of thinking, this dominant way of thinking that we think now. Um, don't know what the need was. I don't know if he created it all on his own or with the help of other people. But really, what was the initial purpose for John Darby to write? Was it just kind of an inspiring thing? You know, J.K. Rowling is very much the same with her novels on Harry Potter. She just looked around and created a story out of it. And that's what John Nelson Darby did. He took a bunch of existing things, existing stories, put his own spin on it, and created something with it. Called it, you know, this is what's going to happen in the New Testament. And that's what's playing out. But through that time, we've had many things happen based on it. We've had, like, you know, Schofield and what he, and the work that he did. It's very mysterious and kind of why is this type of person doing this? Where does it come from? Who, you know, who's telling so and so to print his books? You know, the academic world. Somebody, it'd be like me walking into the academic world and say, listen to everything this guy has to say. He's a real smart character. It's just never going to happen. Just based on the credentials. Just on the credentials alone, it probably wouldn't happen. But as time has gone on, you know, we've had declarations and England controlled most of that area. And then after World War II, the state that was created was done so, apparently, you know, the main reason at that time was we need to give these people their land back. That was kind of the thing. It's time. And they were being persecuted even after World War II. I mean, people don't tell you, they think, well, once the Nazis were over, it was all over. No, the Russians killed them, all kinds of, you know, they were hated by everybody. They had really a lot of them, and a lot more of them died. Some of them were let out of a concentration camp just to go back to another type of concentration camp. So they said, look, let's create a state, and we'll just send them there because we can't find people that want them. It's just nobody wants them, and then everyone else wants to kill them, so let's just send them to Israel. And we'll create this state. And that was born, the idea of it started with, like, the Balfour Declaration and all these things that, because there were always Jews there, but it wasn't an official state. And it didn't have to become an official state. But they pushed for it. They really did. They pushed for it. That was the whole push, was not just let them live there, but create a state that's theirs, their own identity. And no one really wanted to do it, but they got their way in the end. And as far as things like the Rothschild Bank, because it's funny how Maduro, you know, they went in there and consolidated and stuff and did some stuff in Venezuela, but then Maduro started, you know, what's the proper term? He wasn't living up to his agreement. He thought he could get away with doing certain stuff. And it's funny, now he's gone. Now he's in jail. No one complains about it. You know, the Democrats bitch about it in Congress, but they're not doing anything about it. There's no mass protests, right? There's mass protests when, you know, you send law enforcement officers to do a legitimate legal job, but not with this. So no one's telling them that, hey, you need to hate this and go out there and tell everyone what you think. That's not happening. It's not happening really even in Iran. These are two states that really didn't cooperate with the Rothschilds. And this conspiracy it's all mixed in together. There's so many moving parts, and honestly, I don't see how anyone could really, even if you're in on it, to tell what is really going on. And what's really going on in the greater scheme of things is much easier to tell, and that is people just want things to happen. We take the Rothschilds again. They are a group that has enough influence to actually create situations like this. They can go and say, we want you to attack Iran. We think they're making nuclear bombs, and we need you to stop it. And certain people are in office at certain times to do certain things. It just seems like when you get in office, you're going to push Obamacare. When you get in office, you're going to do this. When you get in office, you're going to do that. Biden, you get in office and just borrow as much money as you can. And it always seems to happen this way. And that's because the power brokers of the world are making these decisions. Say, this needs to happen, that needs to happen, this needs to happen. They are that powerful. Something like COVID, they pulled that off. If I told you that was created by an organization like that to happen, you would never believe it. But it's pretty it's pretty provable that it wasn't what it really was. And all these things sound crazy, and most people just don't care. And really, you shouldn't, because really, you're just a commodity anyway. So as long as you just live and follow the rules, and you'll be fine. But what these people are doing is, in terms of religion, and not all religion, but still, all religions, even even the most conservative Catholicism that you could find, are still, eyeing what's happening in the Middle East, because they do believe that the Son of Man has not come back yet, Jesus, and things are still yet to happen. But that's church. That's a church belief. It's a religious belief. In studying the New Testament, like I was saying before, none of this stuff is in there. None of it. And people know about these liberals that become atheists. They come out there, they're on their show, they start whining, complaining about stuff, and they say, amongst the numerous things they just dribble on about, just like I do, you sit here and they just say all kinds of things. And one of the things they say is like, Jesus came back in the first century. I can't tell you how many, all those classes, they love to point that out. Oh boy. Jesus said he already came back in the first century, don't you? Look. I mean, they can't wait. They just can't wait to point that out, and numerous times, ad nauseum. These are supposed to be professionals, and they're like little kids with it. And everybody knows that. Everybody knows all these things happened in the first century. We'll get into 2 Peter right now. We talk about authority and what's this and what's, Jesus came down, God gave him authority. When Jesus left, on his own terms, when he was called back to heaven, he passed that authority on to the apostles. These apostles were chosen. Jesus walked up to Matthew and said, "Follow me." I don't even think he had to say that with some of the other people, because he said, "Come with me and I'll make you fishers of men." I didn't even have to say that. He's like, "Oh, you and you, come on, let's go." And that's why they went, because God told them to. He basically made them do it. He did make them do it. Not basically, but he did. But those people were chosen, and then Jesus gave them authority to do things. He gave them practice runs. He's like, go out and evangelize. Then come back. Probably a few times. Not just once, but a few times. So these apostles had authority, just like Jesus had, to do the same things that he did. But after they died, that was it. The Son of Man came back, in the first century, around 70, around the destruction, is a good place to put it, because it was something physical and historical that we know about. And everything evolves around Jesus's life and crucifixion. And then you have this waiting period, basically. And then you have the sign of the destruction, and that's it. It's over. Forever. It's gone. That's why the temple hasn't been rebuilt to this day. And we'll get into that a little later too, hopefully. But the argument with 2 Peter is, well, Peter didn't write it, it was someone else. Well, then it's not authoritative. And I'm referring to 2 Peter 3. One of the biggest excuses they use is, days like 1,000 years and 1,000 years like a day. I mean, how do you equate that? That doesn't make any sense. In order for something to be authoritative, it has to be by someone who was given authority. or at least directed by, or something. And Peter did put his name on that. But everyone wants to push it out to a time that is after the gospel, so they can say, oh, everyone's been waiting for it and it hasn't coming back and things have changed. Really? Do you think God is so stupid that he was able to set all this up, send Jesus back at the exact moment he needed to show up, put everything in place, all these, connect everything together. But then, oh, oops, the Jews didn't accept Jesus and they killed him. Oh, dang. Because these people are so important for some reason that I'm going to put everything on hold until they come around. And it's been 2,000 years. God didn't see that one coming. They threw him a real curveball on that one, right? Bullshit. That would never happen. Even I know that. The way things are set up, there's no stopping anything. There is no stopping. There's no hold up. There's no 1,000 years. That means nothing. All he's saying is, you've been waiting, you think about it, 40 years is a long, long time. It is. But that's why Jesus was emphatic. He's like, just be patient and keep a lookout. Don't, people are looking out now, but he was talking to the apostles. He was talking to people living at that time. It was like, look for the abomination of desolation. That's what you're looking for. Okay? When you see, like in Luke, when you see armies surrounding the city, that's when you run. And I was talking to another gentleman, and he brought something up really good. Those armies have been there before, so they probably ran out of that city maybe a few times. And then said, well, nothing's really going on. Let's go ahead and go back. But in 70, it was the real deal. But that's what Jesus was telling them to look for. That's the sign. There's no other signs to be looking for. What are you going to look for? The temple, when the army surrounds what? The temple when it gets rebuilt? That doesn't make any sense. And to say 2 Peter was written as late, like as 100 and everything changed, is ridiculous. Because if Peter didn't write it, it's not authoritative. So it shouldn't be in the New Testament. So either it was written, maybe let's say he wrote it, but let's say he wrote it to one person, right? And they held on to it, and 20 years later, someone came by, let's say it was 90 AD, and, oh, you got a letter from Peter? Yeah, he wrote this like 20 years ago, before he died, and, oh, can we copy it? Sure, go ahead. I mean, I don't know what happened to it. It's a letter, right? And it says from Peter. So either it happened when he lived, and we don't really know when he died. They don't mention him anymore after a certain time, but really we don't know. We don't know any of this stuff. We don't know when it was written. But 2 Peter doesn't say anything. And I did a video on this before about Genesis 8. At the end of Genesis 8, God's not going to destroy all mankind again. He said he wasn't going to. So if you want to take that issue up, take it up with him. That was in Genesis. That was way, way beginning of everything. In Revelation, there is nothing that says the world's going to be destroyed. At best you can get, what was it, a third of it was burned up? That's it. A portion. No destruction. And in 21, it talks about a renewal. Specifically a renewal. And these things like, 2 Peter, they're not so specific to what's being said or what they're saying it's saying. It's not spelling out anything. And anyone that says Paul doesn't agree with Jesus doesn't know what they're talking about. Paul's not going to disagree with Jesus. Nobody is. Anyone who's his disciple. But they had authority not to introduce new things, but to transfer what Jesus was saying into people's lives. These are some of the first events that were taking place. And in some places, in some cases, I mean, he'd have to say things like, all right, women can't talk in the church. Okay? Just wait till you get home. I mean, things like this. That's just for them. Don't sleep with your mom or mother-in-law or whatever was going on over there. Don't eat all the food. It's like the Jerry Springer show. He had to deal with all these people. It's probably his punishment. And then you get back over to Peter. Where would Peter even get the idea that things are going to be delayed? Where? Where would he get it from? No one else is saying that. No one else is saying that. The Gospels that were written later, they don't say that either. They're all in line with each other. There's nothing that falls outside of it and saying, oh, it's going to happen, when the Jews, feel like it. And more specifically, the way people think, because of Darby, they're expecting an Antichrist, which does not mean the definition of Antichrist by John in his epistles. The Antichrist is just someone that doesn't believe in Christ, because that's what you are. If you only believe in half of what Jesus says, you're still an Antichrist. You have to take everything and just say, I don't know. I trust him. I trust God. If it says so, then I believe it. I mean, that's at worst, that should be your position as a disciple. But then people become, well, I'm a Christian, or I'm a preterist, or I'm a Catholic. Well, then that's who you are. You're not a disciple. You can't be both. You can't love money and God, right? You can't be a preterist and a Christian and a disciple. It just doesn't work that way. That's why everyone fails. That's why some of the best teachers, like the Steve Gregg, he could have been great, but he just, I'll just revert to some theological allegiance that makes up my view. And he's loyal to that. That's the problem with him. And it's hard to tell that stuff. You go to Kenneth Copeland's church, and they're jumping up around, and he's speaking. I mean, you're going to get. You go to a church where the pastor drives up in a brand new Bentley and gets out and has a hot pink 3-piece suit on and a hat, and you know what you're getting. Don't pretend like you don't. And that's what a lot of these churches do. Like, who's that fat ass Hagee? Is it John Hagee? I mean, this guy is just, he's full of it. Nothing he says even makes any relevant sense. But everyone goes crazy for it. And I think they keep this narrative up, the power brokers of the world. They bring up this John Nelson Darby. They bring it up before the world, and they say, this is Jesus. This is what's going to happen. And they change everyone's view. You got people like Bart Ehrman. Bart Ehrman is not popular because he's such a great person, an academic, or a great professor. He's put up on the world stage because he is capable of expressing himself a certain way that lines up with what they want to hear. And they make sure he knows what they want to hear. And that's the world of academia. They follow a pattern. They do what they're told, basically. They toe the line. Well, you can't do that because our biggest donor is this, and you'll piss them off. You're fired. They're not going to commit career suicide. Some of these people spend like 15 years, 15 years studying, becoming doctors and stuff. They're not just going to piss all that away. Like lawyers, I know lawyers, a lot of these people, they get to a certain point and they're just like, well, what else am I going to do? I have to do it. What am I going to do? Quit and go work at Arby's? I spent too much money. This is the way it's going to be. I have to sell my soul. And it's the same thing with Ehrman and all these other people that get put up in front of you. They're all liars. They know exactly. I've talked to Ehrman a lot on this blog. He knows exactly what I'm talking about. He knows exactly what I'm getting at. And that's why he gives me all these stupid answers to some things. It's not hard to figure out. And I've done it on purpose just to test him and see how he'll respond. And they all respond the same way. They respond in a manner that does not let their view be jeopardized. They just cut it off. That's not the way I view it in the story. It's not a conversation with them. It's just, nope. Oh, is it wrong? I just don't see it that way. Case closed. And why would they? I mean, yeah, okay. You got a blog, you want to talk to people, you're inviting it, but that doesn't mean he wants to interact with everyone, especially someone like me who has built a reputation of, busting his balls, if you will. I mean, obviously I'm doing it. He has to be aware of it. But he doesn't answer the question. He doesn't answer lots of questions. He doesn't answer lots of questions in relation to things like the 2 Peter. Is it authoritative? Because there's no books in the New Testament that are authoritative if they're written by someone else. Even he admits that. I read one of his articles. If it's not written by Peter, then it's not authoritative. But then people ask, right off the bat, what about Luke? Well, Luke was in being directed by Paul. And with Mark, he was being directed by Peter. That's the connection. It's like, and you have to think, a lot of these people, I think Paul would be really, honestly, I think a slam dunk would be, Paul is probably the only one that could write and read Greek. Because it seemed like he had the education. These other people, I don't think they had the education. You have to kind of think about that. So when you want to convey something, like the Gospels, I mean, that's a big undertaking. You have to find someone. You have to come up with the money. You have to come up with the materials. You have to, it's a big project. It really is. These letters come out differently because they probably can't do what needs to be done. They can't convey what needs to be conveyed. Like Revelation, for example. You take John and you take the epistles of John. So let's say the epistles of John, he's somewhere and he's writing these letters and he's got, Sam with him. And Sam is educated, he speaks Greek, he's, maybe he's a follower, maybe he's not. And Sam, I'm just taking a name, writes John 1, 2, and 3. Okay. And that's when he's in, Thyatira, let's say. I can't remember his home base over there in Turkey. I think it's modern day Turkey now. Something like that, Thyatira. So I'm just making things up right now. Okay. But then he goes to prison. Well, Sam isn't there at prison. But Tony the welder, he's there. And he can speak some Greek and he writes some Greek, he's kind of educated. He's there because, he's a political opponent of someone, blah, 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 whatever. And he writes Revelation. You see what I'm getting at here? He called Tony over. He's like, hey, let's get a 6-pack of beer and a pizza and let's do this. Right? No problem. You have John. Maybe he's back in Thyatira again. Maybe he's somewhere, but he's somewhere where he can have the resources to put this down into print. And that's why it's different. These people just didn't. I couldn't even do that to this day. I have more education than they do. I have technology. I couldn't do it. People would complain, oh well, he didn't use the period, and this is a run-on sentence, and this is all that kind of crap. And God knows what they would say if I wrote something. But you're going to get different styles from this. And this is in defense of 2 Peter. So either he did write it during his lifetime, which was probably before the Gospels, which is probably for the destruction of AD 70, the temple. It's not saying what it's saying. He's not saying that the earth is going to melt with fervent heat and all this other kind of stuff. That's not what it's saying. And nothing in the entire Bible, it contradicts what's being said by God himself. God himself in Genesis said, I'm not going to destroy everyone again. And then in Revelation 21, he himself says, behold, I make all things new. John, write this down. Make sure you write this. I am the Alpha and the Omega. It is done. I make all things new. A renewal, not a destruction. There's nothing that says destruction. Oh, heaven and earth fled away. How is that a destruction? How is that? Oh, the old world came and then a new world came in? No, it didn't. And everyone thinks these events are still future, but they're not. And people make the claim that they're waiting for Jesus. I call him the Son of Man, but we can call him Jesus too. They're waiting for the Son of Man. And it's like 100 AD, it's 120, whatever, 90, and they aren't seeing it. In the lifetime of the apostles he was speaking to, they're all dead, let's say, or they couldn't still be alive, and everything's getting spread around, and everyone's like, well, where? It didn't happen. That's the excuse they use now. That doesn't make any sense either. Because the way it's written, it doesn't say anyone's going to see it. There's two different views to this. The good and the bad. Okay? The bad, according to what and how it's written, they are going to see it visually. They're going to see, but what are they going to see? They're going to see wrath. They're going to see vengeance. They're going to see coming on the clouds, these things. When Jesus says, and you will see me coming, and that could just be, oh, you see that big thunder cloud coming? It doesn't even have to be a cloud. It could just be the Roman army. And that Roman army will suffice as to what Jesus was saying. That Roman army, that's us. We're the one that did that. God did it. I'm just with God. But he's the one that did it. And that's me. That's me coming. That's my parousia. No one else is going to see this. Because Jesus, and then you got that other group. No one else is going to see this. Jesus didn't say, when you see me in the clouds, run. He didn't say that, did he? No. He said, when you see these things, this Roman army, run. Run away. You figure if they did run away and they ran out of the city, you can only get so far on foot. Oh, there's Jesus in the sky. Wow. The Roman army, Jesus in the sky. Oh, yeah, okay. No. Because the language he uses, it's more of a perception. You will perceive these things happening, but you're already gone because I've already warned you of things ahead of time. But once that happened, once they fled the city, that's it. That whole, keep on the watches, it's over. It's used up. It's used up. You can't use it for anything else. You can't get it 2,000 years later. It just doesn't work like that. There's no Antichrist. And the person that they are talking about, was that 2 Thessalonians 2 something? That's a first century character. These are all first century, things. And you can say, well, it's written in future. Well, of course it's written in future tense because it hasn't happened yet. At least that's how it's written. Future tense doesn't mean 2,000 years. So what's happening today, they're going to rebuild the temple. I mean, are they really going to actually do that? I don't think so, because God doesn't want it to happen. He got rid of it. He's the one who destroyed it. So is he going to allow it to be rebuilt so these power brokers can deceive us, continue to deceive us? I don't think so. I would say no. Not to put words in God's mouth, but it's not up to us. They can play their games all they want, but I don't think they can do it. And I don't think they want to do it. But they definitely want us continually watching, continuously, waiting for something, and they can just present certain things as they happen to get what they want. Because it's amazing. These things that people say are, this is Jesus. It's not Jesus. 99%, when I say this, 99% of Christians have no idea what they're talking about. They have no idea what Jesus actually said. That's not an exaggeration. They really don't. I think a lot of people on certain terms, of course, say, well, I don't know if I believe all that or this, or I don't really know. It says this, and people are smarter now. They have better access to things like AI, for example, than they did, 40 years ago, 60 years ago. They didn't have to depend on their preacher who manipulated them even more. Because the Bible will twist things, and then the preacher's job is to come in and twist it some more to complete the vision. That's untrue. And that's why you have to be so trained. These pastors, it's like, why do you have to have a doctor in divinity, or a PhD, or whatever, these bachelors? What do you need that for? Just read the damn thing. And the things that they should be paying attention to, like the language, they don't. It's horrible. Horrible. They don't even know what Greek is. I listen to those crybabies over there in Greece all the time talk about it. Oh, it's so bad. They don't know what they're talking about. Culture is so bad. Oh my God, it's so horrible. You should hear them bitch and whine about it. But they don't care, because the New Testament is so basic to them. It's like kindergarten stuff. It's like day one stuff. They've evolved from that. They don't care. They don't care about religion. A lot of them either. I'm sure some of them do, but again, on the world stage, you're not going to hear about these people. They're gonna give you a Bart Ehrman because they want you to listen to what he's saying. And especially when people fall away from religion, you have to do something with it. You still have to control them in the same way religion does. So you have to become a Black Lives Matter, or gay, or atheist, or you have to belong to something. So when they send you, some post on your phone, you get all freaked out about it, and then it says, protest this Saturday. Well, cool. I don't do shit, on the weekends because I'm a loser. I'll be there with bells on, and we'll just scream and yell about, what do we? Oh yeah, the Ukraine war. Okay, they want us to talk about how the government should pass a bill to fund them. Okay, yeah, because if they don't do it, it's racist. Right. Okay, cool. Saturday at 9. I mean, that's how this world works. This country is being subverted. It has been for a long time, and it's getting worse. They just want more control over us, like they do in Europe. They don't want you getting on the internet and saying how wrong someone is. In Germany, you can't do that. You can actually be prosecuted for saying someone, doesn't know what they're talking about. But over here in America, like in Washington, they're violating the Constitution constantly, and these people are lawyers. And you could say whatever you want, but it's not going to do anything. Nobody cares. It just falls on deaf ears. Even the people that do care don't care. They just have like a fatigue for it. So all these things are intertwined. Now, on the world stage, I don't really know what's going on. Again, it's hard to like, what exactly is somebody doing? I don't know. What's their goal? Obviously, some sort of control, power over stuff, power over us, power over Iran. You know, let's get in there, let's get some oil. Economically, uh, you can only invest in so much stuff. And then you got China investing in stuff and rare earth, and you're going around the world looking for investments. Like with was it Greenland? We think there's a lot of raw minerals, precious metals, things like that. It's a way to continue capitalism because you can't just maintain; you always have to expand, basically, by a certain percentage. I mean, like 2.5's pretty good. 5% is like crazy good. Some countries like China, I mean, they say they're doing like 5%, but they're probably doing like 0%. They're probably shrinking, and we're actually contracting too. But we have so much debt, it's hard for us to do anything. And this is how you have a certain type of control. We're the ones that let you borrow you, loan you all the money, right? Tell you what, you go after Iran, you go after Venezuela, you tell Cuba, you do this, you do that, and we'll make you look like a hero. And like someone like a Trump would love that. He's making the big deals. I bought, Greenland. That was me. I'm the best. Something like that is great for him. But I think he was only put there in the first place to do this. But it's happening, and no one's going to stop him. No one stopped Russia from going into Ukraine. They wanted them to. It's like, cool, a war, a distraction. Do it. They love this stuff. But in terms and what is relatable from my perspective of the New Testament, and I have read it, studied it, and it's a real in its original language. I don't know every single aspect, but the overall theme is it happened. If you don't believe that it happened, then you are not a disciple of Christ. 99% of Christians are still waiting for Jesus. What does that say? How could you be a disciple of Christ when you don't even know what the person you're a disciple of said? And even more, reject the fact that it's true because Pastor Bob told you something else. Oh no, the rapture's got to happen first. The rapture? There's no such thing as the rapture. It's insane. It's the rapture. What the fuck are you talking about? what? Where do you get the stuff from? I mean, it's like Harry Potter and Hunter S. Thompson, shit out some kind of doctrine, that people believe. This is what they believe. And I know they like it better. It's better than what Jesus said because it's more fun. It engages you. Oh, it's going to happen any day now. It's going to happen in this generation. I know it. And they just keep this saga going and going and going and going and going. Anytime anything happens, if Haji trips and skins his knee in Jordan or Iran or Iraq, it's the churches go nuts. Oh, this is the coming. It's going to happen any day now. By what particular indication that's in the Bible are you relating this to? I don't know. Doesn't matter. If you can't see it, then you don't have the spirit in you. Whatever crap they gotta tell you, right? What's that thing? Anyways, it doesn't make any sense. And from a disciple's perspective, I have no. If it said Jesus was a purple dinosaur, that's what I want to believe. Okay, that's what it really says. But it doesn't say that. It doesn't say there's a rapture. It doesn't say that the Antichrist is some figure that's going to show up in the future from today. The Son of Man hasn't come back yet. One day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years like a day, and that for some reason somehow translates into the story. And it's such a stupid story too. I mean, it's really bad. It's not even a good story. It's kind of like the Catholics with their, oh, the Pope was Peter was the first Pope nonsense. In the apocalypticism or the apostleship, uh, I would call it a movement, just like the Jesus movement or his, what do people call him, like his mission or his missionary. The apostles had one too, but it started and it ended for Jesus. And then the apostles started and it ended. And that's it. What remained was elders, the gospels, that's what they wrote it for. So everything's done. All you have to do is just sit down, read it, and believe or not believe. And that's it. And it's the same thing today. It's put before every single one of us. But 2,000 years of nonsense has obscured these things. And that's on purpose too. If you want to believe the Pope knows everything, then believe it. And God's going to let you. He'll let you believe this stuff. And if you want to believe that the Antichrist is coming back, have fun. He's not going to stop you. He's not going to tap you on the shoulder and say, you're just such a special person, I can't let you do it. Because the people that believe this stuff are actually under the impression, and this happens in a lot of churches too, is they're under some sort of impression that they're special. And they can see something that no one else can. And there's a special message, and it's a special, everything's secret, and only they know the secret because they go to this church every Sunday, or they belong to this kind of organization. Everyone does it. Same thing with the Catholics. They got there with their nonsense where, they're talking about Peter's a stone on upon this foundation, and that means he's the Pope, and Peter was given the keys and all this kind of stuff. Well, why is it in Matthew and not in Mark, which is actually an authoritative book that came from Peter? He doesn't even mention it at all. There's no succession for the apostles. There's nothing else to be done. Everything's done in the first century. And if people were indeed stupid enough and not paying attention to say, oh, how come the Son of Man hasn't come back yet? Because guess what? Like I was saying before, they wouldn't see it. It's not something you can see. It says it everywhere. Look at John. I was just talking to one of the rapture people at the gym last week, I think, about it. He's talking about like John 3, and he's even talking about it. But they say, in John 3, they're talking about, it doesn't say, his version doesn't say born above. You must be born from above. It says born again. So the message is different. It goes from something God said needs to happen with his authority. And then he talks about the wind and the spirit and everything happens. Everything happens, you don't know where it comes from, but it's invisible. And it comes from God. He's the one that does it. But they want to say, oh, it's through the church, it's through, the work that we're doing, it's the spirit, we have the spirit. Can't you see that how holy I am, Pastor Bob, and listen to my message, and so on and so forth. And it's wrong. It's not even close to what's being said. And he's talking to the woman with the well, and he's saying the same thing. He's like, one day you'll worship in spirit and truth, or truth and spirit. I think it's in truth and spirit, or a spirit and truth. But you see what I'm getting at? This stuff is invisible. Jesus has to tell people, like a fig tree, it's gonna, it's gonna be like discerning. You're gonna be discerning it. It's gonna be like a fig tree. When you see it, see the abomination of desolation, get out of the city, run. because that's the only visual thing I can direct you to. Everything else is just you're not going to see it. Even the words that they use, like a do and stuff like that, it's perceived with your eyes, yes, but not literally. You're going to see. How are you going to see Jesus in the clouds, on the clouds, with the clouds? Everyone terms it a little differently. It just means that's what's coming. You're not going to be able to look up and say, "Oh, there's Jesus. Time to run," because he didn't say that. And he says that so many times, like in the second part of Luke 21. When the tree and all the trees, when you see these things, know that the kingdom of God is near. And in Matthew and Mark, it was replaced with the kingdom of God, because when there it says, know that I am near. Or I think he said, I am near. Jesus, or the Son of Man, he's talking about the Son of Man, I am near, right at the door, right on the doorstep, basically. I can't remember if he says how he terms it. But he's talking about when these things happen. But you will not see it. So he has to explain himself now. So when they see all these things, that's what is happening. That's what it means. 2,000 years ago, this stuff was happening. There's no way you can put it in today's time. It's impossible. It is impossible. Yet 99% of the people are still waiting for Jesus. And good luck trying to convince them otherwise. I don't even bother anymore. And to be quite honest with you, that it's not a secret, but it's become a secret, what it really says. Because everyone thinks it's something else. And some of this stuff, like Matthew 24, like 39, 40, 41, stuff like, I can't even figure out what it is. It's definitely not what they say it is. But it's been so manipulated for so long, it's hard to tell what is actually being said. I know it's first century, so that's the great thing about being under the tutelage of God, is you have the answer. It happened in the first century, so there you go. But more specifically, what is going on there? And I don't really know. It points to certain things, but when you get into the word and all that, and you start making comparisons with Genesis 7 and Luke 17 is not the Olivet Apocalypse, but they say some things that seem like parallels. Because I'm sure they talked about this more than once. Like I said, like the sending out of the 12, I'm sure they've done that more than one time, at least 2 times, to be honest with you, but probably even more than that. Why not? Practice makes perfect. So, but it's so manipulated and distorted. It's almost impossible to try to figure out what they are saying. Just like Revelation 21, I've been doing. I've been having problems with verses 3 and 4 of 21. I know what it says. I know what Jesus said, and I can line them up. I don't think God is saying something different than Jesus is saying. Only men can get in the kingdom of God, or the New Jerusalem. I don't think it's saying that. God is going to comfort, Hitler and wipe away his tears. I don't think that's going to happen, because that's not what Jesus was talking. It doesn't seem like that's what God is talking about either. But literally, in translation, that's what it's saying. But there's more to it than that. There's Hebraisms, there's, Hellenistic style of writing, and it's hard to figure out just as a layman like me. But there's no other material for it, because no one's written on it, because their view is something completely else. They think New Jerusalem and Jerusalem are the same thing. In chapter 21 and 22, oh yeah, it's the same thing. You got to be kidding me. How stupid can you be? And I know they're not that stupid. And I know Bart Ehrman, like that guy, he knows what I'm talking about, but he can't mention it. He's been put up on the world stage for a certain purpose, and he has to play that part. to keep all the stuff going. And he may not even know. Like I'm saying, a lot of these people do things, they don't even know what they're doing. I know this happens in government a lot. Pick up that box and drop it off over there for me, will you? Thanks. Person has no idea what they're doing. Could have been a nuclear bomb in there. Top secret files. They just picked it up, dropped it off. That's it. They don't know. Don't tell anyone that you did that, though. It's secret. It's classified. Oh, okay. It happens all the time. There's so many moving parts. Why do you think we have so many different intelligence agencies in the U.S. and then all over the world? It's hard to tell exactly what's going on, but what is going on isn't good. And the role that religion plays in it is, I wouldn't say it's a driving force, but it's a good cover story. It's to keep people blind, just like everything else. You can keep the liberals blind by just not sending them messages, you know. Just keep attacking ICE and, you know, this Iran war thing, don't worry about it. You know, women's lib, as far as someone did, you know, I know David did a video about that. It's funny, all these issues, when it comes to this, it's like, no big deal. Iran, I think, was what he was saying was horrible for women. And now they're free from it. And not one feminist is saying, hey, this is a good thing. No, not a word. Not one word from anyone saying, I don't like Trump, but, you know, those women are free now, or hopefully freer, or this ushers in some freedom, or blah, 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 whatever. I don't care. And it's, you know, because people are conveying that over the news. They protest, not a protest, but you know, like a good protest, like a celebration. Oh, this is great. You know, the country's free. We're finally rid of those dickheads. And same thing in Venezuela. Oh, those jerks are gone now. Now we can be free. My family, they're so excited. I talk to them. They can finally be free now. They don't have to be under the yoke of these people. But no one says anything about it from these groups. The same thing with the Christians. If you belong to a religion, you got yourself a big problem because you're not a disciple of Christ. You have to be a disciple of Christ first. Then you can go to church. Then you can hang out with your friends and your church buddies. Go on camping trips. There's nothing wrong with church, but they make church the priority. Like, I'll pray when I go to church. Oh, I'll do this when I go to church. I'll just, you know, we'll pray in a group. That's better anyway, right? Go to church doesn't do anything. It's actually torture, to be honest with you. You're torturing yourself. That's why nothing gets fixed, because you're not actually doing anything. It's like going to the gym. I go to the gym. I go to the gym all the time, and I don't get any buffer. I just get fatter. I'm getting fatter. I see these videos. Like a year ago, I was skinnier a year ago than I am now. I go to the gym all the time. Why? Because I don't do anything that invokes any, that brings about any kind of change. Let's go in there and do a couple things and talk and walk on the treadmill, and that's it. Then I come home and have a birthday cake double stack with bacon cheeseburger, and you know that's not going to help, right? I don't really do that, but what I do at home is, in my life, is what counts. Eating, going to the gym, that's such a small part of it. It really is. And it's the same thing with your church and your beliefs. You have to contact God on your own, because if you don't, you're just going to be like everyone else. You're going to be lost. You're going to be thinking, oh, Jesus is coming in today, and you know my shitty life's going to be better. All the stuff is past. All the stuff is past. How could you not tell? How could you not know? How could you call yourself a disciple?